All right, we are streaming live. Okay, good to be back with everybody. We are hopefully going to finish Reish Simon Reish and Ballad today, and there's a couple of extra comments that I want to think about that are relevant, that are outgrowths of what we have studied in this Simon. Which has not been a short topic, and there's of course much more to come in the coming simanim about Amir al Nachri. It's not. It's definitely, this is a very expansive topic. So last week, I'm supposed to share the screen. Oops. Last week we had discussed there were two cases. We had discussed two cases that the Ramah brought up. Number one, the Ramah brought up the case. He brought up the case of the taxes, the meches, and maybe that better way to think about it was the tolls. As thanks to Steve, for that, he pointed out that this is really a collection of taxes as people maybe are coming through or something like that. So if there is nobody collecting on Shabbos, or let's say the Jew bought the rights to such a business on Shabbos, and then there's no collection on Saturday, so that's going to lead to Seda, to financial loss. And this was something that was of great concern to the Ramah, and he explains that the reason that Seda suddenly, because there's a loss involved, this changes the halacha. We don't worry about Marisayin anymore. What are people going to think? Because in that kind of situation, we were maybe even worried that if you don't say, because Adam Bahul al Mamono, the Gemara's principle that a person really gets very worked up when it comes to their finances. So this concept could lead to further or more serious prohibition violations. So when it comes to Makom Seda, we are lenient because there are other concerns that may actually be worse if we don't allow this to take place. Because by the letter of the law, it's okay. You had some sort of situation, whether it's kablanus, it's a situation where you've told the person that if you do this, then you get that, and you do it on Shabbos, you do it on Sunday, whatever you do, or you sell the whole business on Shabbos, so they get all the revach, they get all the profits on Shabbos, the non-Jew. So then there's nothing for me to, by the letter of the law, be worried about. It's more that it looks a certain way, and people might not be aware of what kind of arrangement it is, and people might think it's wrong. But there, we're not concerned about that. And the other case that we talked about was the matbeya shel melech. The coins of the king, the coinage situation. Now, I'll admit one of the things I'm struggling with here. I don't know if anyone, maybe I don't know, Steve, your edition has a little more on this one. That the coinage situation, it sounds to me, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong in just a moment when we read the Mishnah Berurah. Sounds like there's a lot of that you are given silver, you're given kesef, or maybe you're actually given some sort of, maybe it's all, it's whatever it is, it needs to be shaped and formed in some way, right? It needs to be formed into a matbeh, into currency, into coins, and this presents a problem, because to do this on Shabbos is business on Shabbos, number one, but number two, it also comes along with the, it's a noisy business, right? The Rama points out here, the halacha, dino kedin hamemuna ala meches, it's like the din of taxes, that if you get rid of it on Shabbos, that let's say that all the profits go to the non-Jew who's doing this work for the matbeya shel melech, for the coinage, or I have some sort of arrangement that, which is what the Mishnah Berurah is going to point out here. Let's just read it quickly. He writes here, Dino kedin v'chulei, says al kochach v'alkein mutter litein hakesef le'eno Yehudi. Therefore, it is permissible to give the kesef to a non-Jew, to give the money. I guess it's the money here, or the I don't know if it's exactly, it's just silver, or it's that you're giving them already things that are valuable, and now they need to make it into the coinage dafka for the king. So if you give it to the non-Jew ba'od yom before Shabbos starts, so that you deal with this situation on Friday, the kiboles, let's say you agree, shim yaselo min hakesef, you take from all what I've given you, tell a non-Jew, kach v'kach, and you produce X, and so now there are X amount of coins or whatnot, and you can, I guess, now they're good for distribution, for selling, for whatever. So yitain lo kach v'kach. So when it comes time now, you could take some of the profits, or you maybe even get paid in such a currency. So it's a fixed thing. You do so X, I give you get Y, and so therefore you completely incentivize the non-Jew to do the work for themselves or not. If they don't do it, so they don't get. And so by the letter of the law, right, I'm not forcing them to work on Shabbos. It's really their choice. Oh, sheyaskir lo haYisrael harebach, same idea we said before. Sheyala mizeh b'Shabbos laha'eno Yehudi. Or the Jew, basically sells them the business. It's your business on Shabbos. You take all the profits. You make $100, $100,000. You make $0. It's all you. You pay me a number on Friday, and and then it's all you. This is like what we mentioned earlier. Why is this all mutter on Shabbos? Mishum Seder, because of the loss. Because of the loss that is involved here. Now, this is where I'm a little bit struggling. I can translate all these words. I'm a little bit confused as to how this, and so I'm curious if anybody here has some insights here. But it is confusing to me why we call this a situation of loss. In the case of the meches, I understand. So the people come through the town. If I don't collect on Saturdays, then I don't collect on Saturdays, and that's lost business that I bought from the king, meaning that was factored into the price when I bought this meches. Here, is the matbea, meaning does the time passing of Shabbos, that there's this extra time that passes, that it just nothing happens. How is that loss? So maybe I understand how it's a loss of profits. I could make more, but how is it a loss if I'm not losing the kesef on Shabbos? Meaning, the people coming through the town, that's a lost business opportunity that I'll never get back. But the kesef that I guess I receive from the king when I buy this responsibility, it's confusing to me, I guess, a little bit how the what exactly the situation that there is Seder involved here, that there's a loss, that if I don't do this on Shabbos, there's business that forever will be lost out on. I'm a little bit fuzzy on that. The principle at play here is clear to me, right? The principle is that if there is loss, that is not something that I can recoup, but it was factored into something that I bought, when I bought a business, or I got a responsibility from the king. I understand that if I can never recoup the Saturday part, even though I kind of paid for that I understand how it's a significant loss to me. And I think that in any kind of similar situation, you could say that is that's going to be mutter, or we will ignore the concern of Marisayim. If it is not that type of case, it's not a case of Seder, as you see, by the way, here in the Shar Tziyun, V'shelo b'mkom Seder, let's say Stam, a regular person, he gives the silver to a non-Jew. Even on bekablanos, that's not mutter. Then you have to have all the conditions that it has to be in the non-Jew's house, has to be kablanos. Nobody can know. because we don't want to have a Marisayan concern. So we have here, I think, a clear rule. I'm struggling a little bit with how the case of the matbea fits in exactly. I don't know if anyone has any insights. Like somebody's put it in the chat box. Hold on, let's see what they wrote. Maybe there's a mandate from the king to produce X amount of coins within a certain time or forfeit all your payment. Right. That could be right. There has to be something like that where there's a pressure that if, X amount of coins are not into circulation by such a date, that it becomes a serious problem. I think that it has to be something like that. Any other thoughts before we move on to this comment?
If I find anything, I'll let you know.
Okay, excellent. If your edition, you have a different edition, so it's always good to have a different perspective here. Okay, good. So let me just share with you one thing that I have in my edition, which you won't see on the page of the Mishnah Berurah. They quote from Rav Moshe here, right? Because we're talking about that if you technically sell something on Erev Shabbos on Friday, and you give everything to the non-Jew in these businesses, even though it's still Nikra al Shem Yisrael, it's still associated with the Jew, right? If you remember back to the previous Siman, we talked about if it's al Shem Yisrael, even if the non-Jews work, that's a whole Marasayan concern. But we said it's mutter here because of Pseida, because of loss. So they quote here from Rav Moshe. What about the situation? What about shtari mechira? A document of sale in order to allow the work to continue on Shabbos, right? So you take all the profits, you keep it all, etc., etc. So Rav Moshe wrote in Igros Moshe, She'ein dato nocha mikach. He wasn't comfortable with this. And he was not comfortable with this idea that every week you sell the business to the non-Jew, or you have an arrangement where every week suddenly everything gets turned over to the non-Jew when Friday night comes along. Why? Why was he uncomfortable? Kevin sheberov ha'pa'amim hu shelo kedin. He was worried and nervous about that the arrangement wasn't going to always be actually appropriately worked out. Mishum she'ein hanochri ose al das atzmo, ela al das balabayis. Because maybe the non-Jew is really just doing this, wink, wink, nod, nod. He's really not doing this for himself, but he's doing this because he wants to please the Baal Habayis, the real owner, and he wants to be in the good graces of the real owner of the business. Parutz. Moshe was worried and concerned that Shmir Shabbos in America, already people are looking for holes and for ways around. And again, at a certain time earlier in history, right, people more often worked on Shabbos, Jews, right? That's the whole, many people point out, that's the whole genesis of the Hashkar Minyan concept, was that people needed to go to work. They wanted to daven first, and then you went to work. So he was not. So the yatiru based in mechira lenochri kedei lahatir avoda b'Shabbos. If you're going to allow such a thing, so the Beis Din is going to allow this so that work will be able to happen on Shabbos, and maybe sometimes yes, it will be the appropriate arrangement. But he's worried tischalel haShabbos b'farhestia, that when we allow the business of Jews to be open on Shabbos, this will lead to more public desecration of Shabbos because it normalizes something that looks a certain way. If we start to become even more lenient, and people will start to become more lenient on certain issues. What will happen? As I told you, I think the big concern here, and Rav Moshe clearly was concerned about this. The Jewish people will start to sit in their stores. I'm just sitting here to watch. I'm not telling them how to run the business. But come on, the guy knows you're right there. He sees how you're watching him, and he knows that he'll have to answer to whatever happens on Shabbos. he's going to start to be there, and it's easier to start to get involved. Oh, can I just ask you one question? The non-Jew comes up, here. So can I ask you one thing? We have this problem, that problem. Well, what do you do? You start to get involved. And Rav Moshe was concerned about this. And so he didn't like this idea, even though there's a technical heter here on the books that we're reading about. He didn't like this. And as I mentioned last week, the Mishnah Berurah didn't like it either. And he said that only the Achronim only allow this in exactly these cases, which of course means that he's not allowing this in 99.9% of industries. You have to be in the Meches of the Melech or the Matbeh of the Melech. Those are very specific examples. So you see a real move away from trying to learn a general rule from these specific examples. And I think, by the way, they are examples. The Ramah even himself, seems to have, as you'll see here in a moment, well, actually, you know what? The Ramah maybe actually does only specify the examples. It's not clear he would think this should apply elsewhere, though. On a svara level, why should it only apply in these cases? But this is I think the great concern that people were worried about Hilchot Shabbat more generally if we're lenient on this issue. The Ramak includes, and he writes over here, V'zoher shelo yeshev Yisrael etzel ha'eno Yehudi b'Shabbos k'she'osek b'malachto. Here you go. This is what we were just talking about. The person should be very careful if you do this arrangement that the Jew should not be sitting there on Shabbos as the non-Jew is doing the work, whether it's in the matbeya business, the coin business, or with regards to the receiving of the toll, of the tax, whatever. However, you explain that situation, you shouldn't be there. Now we understand why. Okay, but let's read a little more here about what the Mishnah Berurah said about this issue. He writes here, Shelo yeshev ha'Yisrael shehiskir lo o shalucho, right? Whether it was arrangement that I sold you the business completely, right? I maskir the business, you got it, it's your reward and your profits, etc. Or they're a shalucho, right? They're a shliach. They work for me, right? And let's say it was an arrangement where you're a kablan, right? So I contracted you, right? You don't own the business or own the profits today on Saturday. You're going to get a cut of it, but you're not getting it's not solely the non-Jews. Because of Ataz, Demasha Osir Leishev Sham. Taz writes the fact that it's prohibited to sit there. Hainu Kadei Liyoda Mahi Hahis Askus She'oseh Ha'eno Yehudi. It's really the problem is about knowing what is the non-Jew doing. Ukadei lekabel. Let's turn the page. Ukadei lekabel. There we go. Hemeno cheshbon or al zel lemachar. Or what am I? I'm there because you know why? Because Sunday morning when I open the business, I put the key in the door. I'll know everything. I'll know how much cash is in the register. I'll know who came into for business, who's coming back tomorrow. To pick up something that they purchased, I'll know everything already. So that Sunday morning, I'm good. I'm up to speed. So that means that even though the work is going to happen on Sunday, I actually benefited from the fact, I benefit a little more from what I was doing on Saturday. I was there. I was kind of working. But here's the biggest problem. Why is this all prohibited? Just what's the problem? I could sit there and so it affects tomorrow. How is that usher? Come on, Rabbi Klinger, you're being a real machmer here. So the Mishnah Berurah explains the whole point here is the ze'asur mishum mimtzo chefzecha. Well, now we have another concern. This concern, which comes from the term mimtzo chefzecha, comes from Sefer Yeshayahu. I believe it's chapter 48. Where Shabbos is described as being trampled on because we're dealing in business, right? We're not thinking about Shabbos. We're looking into our heftzcha, into our desires, into our businesses, into the things that are the asek of the weekdays. This is the weekday business, and we're not supposed to engage in conversation really. Or in action that is about business. It's about talking about things that are not relevant to to Shabbos. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't talk about the current events of the world around the Shabbos table because it doesn't have to do with Shabbos. That might be actually enjoying Shabbos. That might be how people find Oneg Shabbos. They will talk to their friends, their family about the current events in the world. But here, this is clearly, right, when you're sitting there and you're trying to find out what's going to be in the cash register for tomorrow morning and, which clients came in, because I want to know so that I know who to follow up with during the week. This is me dealing with things that are completely unrelated to Shabbos. I'm dedicated solely to my own business ventures. And that is a prohibition of mitzvah heftzcha, of really being engaged in business. Again, not doing anything usher per se in it's buying and selling, but I am engaging in conversation and in action that is related to my own pursuits business wise. And we'll get to this when we get to Kidul Kaman, Siman Shin Vav, Sif Aleph. This is going to be our whole Siman dedicated to this and the kind of speech on Shabbos that you should try to avoid. Like if you're talking about really, again, weekday things that are, not that you can't, if you're enjoying it on Shabbos, again, you're talking about the current events. But if you're talking in business, you see your business partner in shul and you start talking business. Right? You're not, I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking business. So it's midrabanan. This is something that the rabbis prohibited because it takes away from the Shabbos day. And we will get to that topic when we get to Shinva. Aval im eno yoshev sham. Let's say ela kedei lishmor es ha'eno Yehudi shelo yignov min hameches. What if I'm concerned that there will be theft? So I'm not getting involved in the business. I'm there simply because I am nervous that there will be some sort of geneva from the cash register, right? So I'm a toll collector. I have a cash register there. That's my cash. I didn't sell him the cash that was there from Friday or from Thursday. I told him you could keep everything from Saturday. Or you collect X, then you get Y. And now he collects, he starts telling me I did double X, because he takes a bunch of cash from the register and shows me, hey, look how much I collected. So whatever. The point is, I'm trying to make sure that everything is kosher. So then that's mutter. That is permissible. And the explanation here that some give, and this is the Mishnah Berurah doesn't say this, but in my other edition here, I have a little, some additional thoughts here, as we'll see in Shin Zayin later on. Why is this not a problem of nimtzo heftzcha? Right? I'm doing the same thing. I'm watching the business on Shabbos. So there, because of hefseid mammon, again, because of significant monetary loss, the concern of significant monetary loss, we say that such a concern falls away. Okay, and that's why this is even on the table. Umizeh, now let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah here. Umizeh nicha ma shenahagu machzike rechaim mehasar, and he says this is what the custom of those who are machazike rechaim. Rechaim is a mill. So those who have sort of taken the mill business or bought the mill business or are in charge of the mill business, I'm not sure exactly what they're producing, if it's grains or something, from the SAR, from the province the provincial governor or the officer, lahoshiv sham yisrael afilu b'Shabbos, and what do? They sit there. They're worried. They sell the business to the non-Jew on Saturday or something like that, and they're concerned. Raki zaharu shelo yadaber klum b'ha'esek, but they have to be very careful not to talk one word about the business itself. V'chein kasav shari achronim, and this is what many of the achronim say. Again, so because of Seder, such a thing was allowed. If the business is allowed in the first place, then this is something that is permissible, but only if you are very careful to be there simply to watch the cash register or to just make sure that there is no funny business taking place on Saturday. Okay, well, we conclude the Mishnah Berurah there. I'm just going to show you some of the comments of the Aruch HaShulchan here, and then with that we'll stop today. The Aruch HaShulchan, I may stop the screen share, you can see me more clearly. So the Aruch HaShulchan says the following. He says, so he says, first of all, he says that if a Jew takes on one of these businesses he receives from the government or from one of the the provincial leaders, one of these kind of businesses, if it's possible that the job I can turn around and do this with the kablan, so the Shabbos arrangement with the kablan, let's say there's a digging involved on Shabbos in one of these businesses that I acquired from the state. Digging is an Issa D'Oraisa. If I can do it in a way where, like, if you dig X, Y, and Z in these state-run fields, so you'll receive X. So that's the best way to do it, because then I've leveraged this on a heter arrangement, and even though maybe you say it's Maris Ayin, again, because of Seder, we will allow it. But he says, if the business can only be done with a schir yom, meaning I can't make an arrangement. If you do X, then you'll get Y. It's more like this person works for the day. Okay, I make this, I make X, right? That's my daily work wage. You can pay me X if you want me to do your work today. So then, what's the situation with schir yom? Let's say you're in the alcohol producing business, right? And they're not interested. By the way, the state is not interested in the alcohol being, if you produce X, I'll give you some alcohol or something like that. You could take home 30% of the booze that you produce, right? That means the governor wants to keep that, whether he wants to drink it himself or to give it to his friends or whatever. The post office. You are in charge of the post office. Right, you can't take the profits of your job is to run. You've been told run the post office, but the post office needs to be open on Saturday for the governor, or for the state, for the country, and so I can't start giving him it doesn't make sense. I just need it's a hard business to arrange kablanus, let's say, or machzikim susim, or I'm in charge of the royal horses. There is no solution to really having a kablan arrangement. With the meches, the toll, the tolls. Okay, you'll take 30% of the tolls, on Saturday. You'll take 30% of the coins for due, whatever it is. Here, it's hard to do this. And also with the horses, by the way, there's a further concern that your animals are not allowed to work on Shabbos. If I'm in charge of the business, and so the horses have been given over to me. I don't know what they use them for. So you have to be careful if it's owned by the non-Jew now, because the governor gave it to me to do X with the horse. Now it's my horse, and I can't just turn around and give the non-Jew the horse, because my horse has to rest on Shabbos. Animals have to keep Shabbos too if they belong to a Jew. By the way, it's explicitly in the Torah, right in the Ten Commandments. I'm not making that up. The animals also have to rest. The kol shekein osam anashim sheyesh lahem something there's some sort of merchandise business, and the people who do the work in those businesses, they only do schir yom. I'm not getting involved in taking X cut. I want to know I'm getting my $50 a day, and I can't hire anybody. Nobody will take a job. It's not normal in that place to have a other arrangement other than a schir yom. So ein shum trufa el mechiras kol ha'esek. I can only just sell all the business to the non-Jew with a kinyan hamoel al pidin, with some sort of kinyan, some sort of transaction that works according to the letter of the law. And this is even though everyone knows this business belongs to a Jew, because of hefsed meruba, because of great loss. Lisa, the non-Jew should not do the work in the house of the Jew, but we don't worry about the Marisain. He says, he says this is the widespread custom. He says when it comes to the field arrangements, things that work in the field, he says this is common. that people are selling the business on Shabbos. There's Hefsed Meruba, apparently, and with regards to like certain things related to the field. And so this is how it's all going down. People are actually doing these sales. And if the animals are doing work and they're your animals, you have to sell the animal also on Shabbos, for Shabbos, that is, because your animal can't do work on Shabbos. And he says this is a very complicated situation. And he says here you need to go to the Rav HaKehila, who, by the way, was him for his town. And he says, because the kinyonim on this situation are not so simple. And I will close by, and he says that many are doing this and they don't know what they're doing and they're not doing it properly. But if you think about the kinyonim for Mechiras Chametz that we do every year, I can tell you that it is not a simple business to make a sale to a non-Jew in general. We make 7 kinyonim with the non-Jew when we do Mechiras Chametz because we're not sure which one is the one that works. The Gemara is not so clear about how to affect a kinyan with a non-Jew. We do it because we think that one of these definitely has to work. It can't be that there's no easy way to do it, but it is not 100% simple. And that's why it has to be done with the Rav HaKehila, because somebody like that would have known how to do these kinyanim. There are many ways to make sure that it's okay. But he says that people weren't doing that. They were just doing their own kind of sale, which was not necessarily a halachically appropriate sale. And therefore, they really owned the business on Shabbos, as it turns out in the end. Okay, we'll stop here. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And we'll make, I think, one more comment next time at the end. And then we're going to move on to the coming siman about partnerships between Jews and non-Jews on Shabbos.